Welcome, everyone. My name is JR. I'm the founder and owner of Business Leaders Network, where our mission is to build a community of emotionally intelligent servant leaders. And we do so through education, visibility, connections, and referrals. And one way that we like to give back is by bringing other entrepreneurs that are doing big things and hearing more about the impact that they're making in the world. And so if you guys are tuning in and you're listening, wherever you're at on the World Wide Web, we'd love for you to tune in, listen, ask questions, and reach out. And if it makes sense, make sure you connect with the individual that you heard from. So welcome today, Leda and Amy. I'm so glad you guys are here today.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Amy, I'm going to ask you the first question. Why don't you share more about who you are, what you do, and the impact that you're making?
Well, my name is Amy Nunn, and I started my business about 3 years ago, and I am a leadership strategist and executive coach. And I work with businesses, nonprofits. I actually work with some churches. My former profession was in ministry. And so, yeah, I love what I get to do.
Yeah. So what are you doing with the teams and the leadership?
Sure. Big thing is patterns. There's always patterns in businesses and organizations and leadership teams. And the patterns people don't recognize. They see the same problem, they think they've solved it, then they try something different, and it's just the same thing over. And they're not diagnosing, they're finding that spot and they're like, oh, well, it's a people problem. Well, no, it's most likely a system problem. And so that's kind of a short way to say what I do.
Yeah, but you're kind of diving into problems, which wanted to hit on a little bit more. What are you finding in your space to be the top like two or three big problems that they're struggling within leadership and teams, or even when it comes to scaling the businesses? Because I've watched your social media and it seems like you're doing some really cool stuff. So
Yeah. There's three things. It's only three things. And I've seen it in nonprofits, I've seen it in for-profit businesses, and it is the same thing every time. It's people, communication, and systems. Those three things. It's never outside of that. It's always inside of that. And typically it is not a people problem. There are challenges with people sometimes, but the communication, lack of clarity in that, or not knowing how to communicate in the way that other people need to hear it versus what, like if I communicate to you the way you need to hear it, but I communicate to Leda the way I need to hear it, it might come off completely differently. So the communications, system, and people.
love that. Very cool. Thank you so much, Lita. Same question for you. What do you do? Where are you from? And what's the impact that you're making in the world?
Yeah, so I'm from Florida. My I'm a registered dietitian with over 10 years of experience. My business is called Nourish Flourish Energy, and I basically help people heal their relationship with food and their bodies. Now that's kind of like surface level what I do, but deep in the surface of what I actually do is actually help them come home to themselves. So meaning
Hmm.
find their own voice, understand their body signals. And typically food is kind of one of those things where it pretty much shows up, especially if we're kind of battling each other every single time we eat, then we kind of go deeper into the surface and try to heal that relationship with food. So basically we can come alive again.
Yeah. What type of people are you working with? Because I come from the fitness space. I understand nutrition and all those different things, but not every dietitian's beliefs or methodology is the same. And even with the type of people that you're working with, because you'll have some dietitians where strictly focused on weight loss. But I like what you said. We're learning to fall in love with food again and stuff. And some people can be OCD or from one extreme to the next. So whether it's too much or too little, or for whatever it may be, where are you finding the biggest disconnect or the biggest problems in when it comes to nutrition? Let's speak from an entrepreneur standpoint, because I know from my standpoint, I have a lot of kids, and we're always on the go and we're always moving, and so it's easy for us to grab go and be quick with it and not pre-plan. And I always have success when I'm planning my meals, and same with my kids. But I have a follow-up question with this, and if you want to address it or not, is how do I instill good nutrition for my kids without them having um, bad images about their body, and making them understand and being healthy? Because my oldest is only 10, but I'm like,
Yeah.
he's super active. All my kids are. They're really active and they're doing different things, but I can tell like they're not eating the best. And I don't know how to do it where I don't want to cause any issues. I don't want them to think bad about food, think bad about their bodies because they're still in that awkward phase of growing and stuff like that. And so Just kind of curious on your. I know that's a lot of questions, but hopefully you're tracking.
Yeah, let's kind of reverse it to the first initial question, and then we'll go deeper into the original or the last question that you just had. So the
Cool.
first question was,
Uh, the first question is like, what is the big problems that you're facing or that you're seeing on the market when it comes to the extremes of food, whether it's too much or too little?
yeah, there is a lot of food noise going on right now. A lot of diet culture, a lot of you should eat this, you shouldn't eat this, a lot of fear around food. Most people aren't eating enough because they're just so scared to eat. There's just so much crap noise out there that people are just continuing to just listen to
Mm.
everything that's out there. But guess who they're not listening to? Their bodies.
Hmm.
They're completely disconnected from their bodies.
Mm.
So going further into your question, which is about your son, connect them to their bodies, help them understand what their bodies are asking for, and help them differentiate between what's the difference between what's going on in their heads, what's going on in their bodies, what's going on with their emotions, because all of that goes right back to food.
Yeah, I'm seeing on the market a lot of. I could be wrong on what it's called. TRT shots, whatever they're taking for weight
But the
loss.
GLP-1s,
I don't know, but I forget what it's called. But they're taking shots to lose weight, and I know people that get it. And I'm like, man, that is so wrong. It feels like it's the HCG era where they take the drops
yeah,
and they have
yeah, that's exactly what
the
that
five.
is.
They want that quick fix, and then they do the
Right.
500 calorie diets and stuff. And it just, what are you seeing on that market? And then how can people listening like what what are some things that they can you just be mindful of, not to scare them, but just be mindful of good and bad, and just kind of. And I'm not saying one's
Yeah.
good and one's bad, but from your
Yeah.
professional experience.
I think, and just in everyone's journey, there's things that we have to kind of go through to kind of experience what this looks like, what this feels like for oneself. I think that's a big part of what I do is I empower people to make the choices that they think is best for themselves. And in that process, we learn, right? So with the GLP-1s, what I'm seeing right now is that there's a lot of people who are using them as a quick fix, as a band-aid. That's the reality of it. That's what it is, right? You're not going to heal your relationship with food with GLP-1. You're not going to overcome, feeling good about your body, being kind to yourself, learning about self-love and self-compassion through GLP-1. And the reality is that when it comes to like trying to lose weight, a lot of people are going against themselves, they're going against their brains, they're going against the thoughts that are in their heads, going against their bodies. And so they're causing all this huge storm inside of their brains, inside of their heads, that's causing them to feel somewhat of a prison. So then we take the GLP-1, we think it's going to solve the problem. And by all means, I think everybody should do exactly what it is that they feel inside that they need to do, whether that's take the GLP-1 or not. But at the end of the day, I know where this is going to lead. It's going to lead to a place where you're still not okay with food and we're still not okay with our bodies, right? Because it's just a little band-aid.
Yeah. No, that's the perfect answer, and I'm glad you said that because in business too, it's not even just from nutrition, but in business, people want that quick fix, and it's like they see the noise on social media and think like, well, this person says they're doing $1 million a month or $100,000 a month or whatever it is. Why am I not doing that? I'm just as good or just as qualified, and not realizing that it's taken them probably 5, 10, 15, 20 years to get to that level with just like what Amy was saying, it's communication and systems and what'd you say, people?
Hmm.
Yeah, and people.
Yep.
So you got to have all those things that's going to help you get to the level where you can do it. It's not going to happen overnight, but people want that. And I always tell people the reason why you're not where you want to go is because you just give up too soon. They're going from offer to offer to offer and offer instead of sticking with the thing that you saw that worked, but because it didn't work the next week or next month, so you get all nervous and you try to create a new offer instead of sticking with that. I fell in that trap for a long time. It's like, let me do this offer, let me do that offer, and I'm like, I'm sticking with one thing and build it. So I had a coach tell me once is like you stick with one person, one problem, one offer until you reach $1 million or more, and then you can add something new. So
It's great advice. I love that.
yeah, and that's always stuck with me. One person, one problem, one offer, and until you reach $1 million, and then you can add another offer. So, but take it as it is. Cool. I had one other question for you, then we'll go to Amy on the next one. Is when you're thinking and looking at the busy professionals that are out there, we understand the value and the importance of nutrition and exercise to taking care of your body. I look at the body as being the temple that God gave us, and so we need to make sure we're good stewards of taking care of it. And nutrition is a bigger piece of that, even when it comes to exercise. Like I would say, nutrition is even higher on the the pyramid scale, if you want to call it, and then even exercise. But both are still important. But when it comes to the everyday busy professionals, what's like one good hack that they can be considerate about or be mindful of to making sure that they're staying on track with their goals? I've had a lot of theories out there, but I'm always interested to hear like what other professionals say to stay on track. What's one methodology for
Is that
you?
for me?
Yep, that's a question for you. So what is one
Oh,
what is one methodology or one little hack that the busy professionals can do to making sure they're staying on track with their nutrition goals?
all right. So I'm a dietitian. I should be telling you food is the most important. I don't agree with that.
Okay,
I don't
cool.
agree with that. Okay. You can have the perfect diet. You can go work out perfectly. But if your nervous system is always on fire,
Mm,
you're going to find yourself trapped.
that is so
So,
good. Yeah,
yes.
I've been hearing more and more about the nervous system and gut health and everything else, and over the past a few years. So that's good because it's funny you mentioned that because I think for me personally, like I'm not in your space. I'm not the professional when it comes to that. I can teach people how to run and work out and stuff like that, but when it comes to nutrition, like I hire people like you. It's like, hey, go talk to the experts. But I always put the nervous system in the same categories as nutrition and because I always looked at it as one. It's like what you eat,
Yeah.
you're feeding your nervous system and stuff like that. And you're saying it's not.
No, no, they impact each other for sure.
Hmm.
But the nervous system is kind of, in my opinion, it's literally the electricity that's running your body. So if your electrical impulses, let's say in your gut, or those nerve impulses are hijacked by fight or flight reaction, and they're always like going kind of a little crazy, right? And you stay that way for 20, 30 years, well, then they get a little bit fried and they stop working. It's actually what happened to me, right? So my
Hmm.
gut ended up becoming not the best. And I ended up having a lot of gut issues and whatnot. And it was because I was stuck in fight or flight for 34 years, right? I can eat all the salads, I can eat all the fiber, I can exercise well, which I've done all my life. And still I ended with gut health issues, right? And so when it comes down to the work that I do, it's always nervous system regulation, making sure you're breathing, making sure you're regulating your nervous system over and over and over again. I think in today's society, we're finding that there's so many distractions and so much chaos, so many things that are going on, but every one of us has a little world inside of our brains, right? And so if we're constantly allowing that to bombard ourselves and bombard ourselves and bombard ourselves, then we're constantly going to be in that fight or flight. And so it takes us, and God to help us to get to this space where we can actually regulate the nervous system and find that inner peace and find that place of love where we really feel that peace within us.
That's so good. I love that. Thanks for sharing that. Amy, I'm going to move on to you. The next question is you working with leadership and people and teams and organizations and doing a lot of really cool things. What is one really good testimonial story that stands out to you on where were they at when you started with them? What did you help them achieve? And what was kind of like that main secret sauce to help them get there? You don't have to go through the whole processes, but like, what's the big thing?
The big thing is I was working with a local municipality, a large one, and they had a director and a couple of other staff that they just they weren't performing well. The department was a mess and it was causing they were ready to fire them. And they were like, "Hey, we would love to hire you to executive coach these people. Can you do it in 3 months?" And I said, "No. 3 months is just a building a relationship. It has to be at least a minimum 6 months because that's where change you really see." And so when I got into it, I started asking questions and just listening to what their problems were and listening to the city administrator's problems that he was having. And I instantly saw what the problem was. The city had grown very rapidly. Their systems were not scaling with them. Their staff were not scaling with them. And they no longer had systems within their departments. And so this particular one I had the pleasure of working with, and we fixed the systems, which then in turn helped fix what was perceived as the people person,
Hmm.
the people problem.
Yeah, that is awesome. I mean, it sounds like chaos. It's like if you don't
It
have the system,
was.
if you don't have the system in place and everyone's like talking, it's like a marriage. Like I always look at business as a marriage. That when we're living two separate lives and not communicating and going in different directions, then the expectations and everything is going to cause friction with each other. And so getting in there
Yeah.
and creating the systems and the communication and getting people talking, make sure they're on the same. I have a story for you that just popped to mind. I had a client years ago. He owns a junk removal business out in Northern Virginia, and he was one of my higher end one-on-one coaching clients, and you wanted me to come and help. And I was like, okay, well, we got to diagnose and figure out what's going on. And at that time, they were only making probably 300,000 a year in the business, which is not too bad. But so I went in and I was in a boardroom, and there was probably 15, 20 people in there. So he's a partners in a business as well. And so I had all of his employees. I had the two owners of the company in there, and I pulled out one small little exercise. I handed each of them a white sheet of paper, and I made them write quiet like on their own. I said, "Tell me the mission of the organization." Even the owners, like I got them all back and I was reading them one by one. Even the owners were on completely different spectrums of where they thought the business was and where they were going. Yeah, they were building,
Mhm.
like doing junk removal and stuff like that, but they didn't even know they were on the same page. And so it wasn't even just a system problem. It was a leadership problem that no one knew what they were doing. They're just showing up and they're like, oh, we just pick up junk. It's like, okay, well, we got an order. Let's go do it. But they all had different visions, and we had different missions and different focus. I mean, I love the scripture and that talks about without a vision you'll perish, because we think about that as being a small little thing, but as an entrepreneur, when we look at that as
Mhm.
like a huge piece, that actually it should almost terrify you if you don't know like where you're going. And people always confuse vision and mission. Vision is always the destination of where you're going, and mission is the process that helps you get there. So like our mission in the military is to go to Iraq and do, ours was, in our city was to recruit Iraqi police and train them up so they could be self-sustaining. And so, but every little piece is different. But the overarching of the mission or the vision of Iraq and that whole, war was very on a bigger thing. But every unit had a different mission that focused on it. And so it's like,
Mhm.
what do we got to do to get there so all the pieces work together? And in our business, we have to think about the same thing. And if you don't know where you're going, it's like, we think about that plane, it gets just a little bit off degrees and it keeps going and going. And pretty soon it's miles and miles away from the destination because,
Yeah.
they didn't know exactly the process of how it was going to get there. They knew they needed to get from DC to St. Louis, and it looks like a straight line if you look on a map, but it just goes a little bit different directions. So
You know,
sounds
it's
like
interesting that
chaos.
it's interesting that you say it that way. I worked with another company and the CEO goes like, yeah, our team knows our core values. They know our mission. They know where we're going. And I said, awesome. How are you guys teaching that? He goes, well, the executives always share it with the staff when we meet every week. And it was a pretty large organization. They probably had 150 to 200 employees. And I said, has anyone ever asked them outside of that meeting what one of their mission value, what your mission value is and what are your core values? Well, they're on the wall. And I'm like, okay, but when was the last time you asked them? Well, we haven't. And I said, I would challenge you to pick an employee ahead of time and give them the opportunity to stand up there and tell the core values and the mission and why they matter. And what you'll see a transform staff because they get it. And it's not just someone talking at them, it's them living it because they now have to
Mhm.
internalize it in order to share it with someone else.
What's the slogan of Nike?
Just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah, that's that. I mean, it's not even just from the employee standpoint; it's from the consumer standpoint too. When they understand it,
Yeah.
that's why even from
Ooh.
BLN, I always talk about what separates us and our mission is to build that community of emotionally intelligent servant leaders. And my goal is that every person lives it and breathes it and knows it, and they talk
Hmm.
about it. So, but it's so true. It's funny that you just said that about like the core values and stuff like that. 3 years ago, I sat down for coffee with a pastor at one of the big churches in my local area, and he was like, what is one thing that I could do differently here? And I said, well, what's your vision of the church? He said, well, it's serve and help people. And I was like, yeah, that's great. Does everyone know it? And he was like, I think they do, but but you'd tell he wasn't sure. And
Hmm.
I met with him many times, and I was like, he's a completely different person because he shifted it. He was like, now his goal is like every person knows, but it was that one little thing. And this is a pastor of a pretty decent sized church in our area,
Yeah.
and he didn't realize they were communicating it. So
When I was in ministry, my last team that I had, we had 250 people under my team, like in my department.
no.
And what I would make them do every week when we'd have a circle up time, whoever was for the different services, it was a mega church that I was at. And so I would never lead it. I always let my leaders and then they would pick people to lead. And, the greatest sign of a leader is not the being the one that has to stand in front of everybody all the time telling everyone all the things. It's where you invest and implement systems to help other people understand why we're doing what we're doing. And
Mm,
that goes for a nonprofit, for a business. It doesn't really matter. If you don't understand why you're doing something, you cannot fully invest in it.
yeah, that's so good.
I have a question. How do you define emotionally intelligent leaders?
Yeah, so that's a whole training lesson that I give because emotional intelligence, I'll just give you five key character traits when it comes to emotional intelligence. But I take it from the study of Walt Disney. And when he was living, you couldn't work for Walt Disney unless you exemplify the five character traits. Starts with self awareness, self regulation, motivation, empathy, and then social skills. And so there's those five character traits, and all of them make up an emotionally intelligent leader. And so when you're thinking about someone, it's like, okay, let's just say you're coming to an event. Are you aware of the surroundings, and are you aware of your own personal self? And if it's chaotic, do you know how to regulate it? Do you know how to regulate a room? Do you know how to regulate yourself? Are you able to be, in the military, you say salty? Like, are you mature? Are you all the different things? If you're mad, are you able to motivate yourself to be present and involved with that individual? If for empathy, it's like, I don't need to understand why you're mad and you're upset, or why you're struggling, and why you're all the different things. My job is to express empathy and understand where you're at and have that level of consideration for other people. And social skills is about communication. And so when I'm, to come into BLN, our community, normally I always do either they have to be on a roundtable or done a one-on-one call with me. That's like, period. Like, it's just, I got to understand. Or if you come in and I meet you and I see that you're all over the place. Like, we don't allow drama in our community, so you're not going to be a good fit. And so we're very particular about individuals from there. And it's you got to be careful whenever you're building any type of community organization or a team, because we always hear the saying that a weed spoils a crop. And I've let other people come in the past that wanted to stir up things, and I'm like, not happening. And then you let them in longer than they should, and it just causes more stuff that you got to do more damage control. So, but those are the five character traits of emotional intelligence that I've taken from the study of Walt Disney, one of my mentors and leaders for many years. He has his doctorate he's from St. Louis too, but he has his doctorate in entrepreneur leadership, and he wrote his what do they call it?
Dissertation?
Thesis.
Yeah, no, his dissertation on Walt
Oh,
Disney, Steve Jobs, and Belton Hershey. And so
Ooh,
I've learned through him a lot of different things of all
crazy.
those. And Walt Disney, the cool thing is we went I think 2 or 3 times. We actually went to Disney World, not to do rides, but really study like how did everything was ran. We even do a helicopter over the whole park. And it's funny because you like hear the vision about Walt Disney when he created it, but from
It's
the
pretty fun.
sky it looks like this, and it's
Yeah.
so tiny. So
I actually used
um,
to work at Walt Disney World as
yeah.
a
oh,
coach. Yeah. And I used to work underneath the castle in Orlando.
Oh, nice. That, just so you know, that castle is my daughter's castle. If you ask her, she didn't say it's her castle. She's like, Daddy, when am I going to go back to my castle? So
Yeah,
she's
that's
well,
five.
cute.
Disney is pretty fascinating. I remember one of his quotes that he says, it's like, if you can dream it, you can, or if you can believe it, you can think it. What's it? If you can dream it, you can become it, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The business of Walt Disney is just so amazing. Like, they're just a study, like this
Hmm.
vision. I mean, he's from Kansas City and was through papers, newspapers, starting out as a little boy.
Yep.
But he had this vision of Walt Disney. He never even got to see Epcot. There's so many cool things. And I could talk forever, but I want to get to you, Leda. So why don't you share more about one of your client success stories? Where were they at when they started with you? What did you help them achieve?
Yeah, so one of my clients started with lots of food noise. So, I have fear around carbohydrates, fear around certain foods that have been quoted as, bad foods in diet culture, not feeling so confident about their bodies. And throughout the process of building self-compassion, self-love, nervous system regulation, and obviously talking through things, intuitive eating, they were able to unblock a lot of the things that were keeping them from being themselves, really. Because when we're in conflict with food, you're always in conflict with yourself, right? You have to eat at least 2-3 times a day, right? So if it becomes such a huge like storm in our heads, right? So and so then afterwards, she was just very she felt like she was alive and engaged with her life again, right? Because now all the blocks have been removed and now we can just be our inner selves of who we are
Yeah.
without anything kind of hiding in the shadows, right?
When you say like she can feel like she is who she is, what did that help do in her life moving forward?
Yeah, so now she can concentrate on her career. She can focus on other things not related to food and body. She can focus on the trips that she wants to take,
Hmm.
right? So that's living, right? We don't need to focus on the things that we're fearful. We need to focus on the things that make us feel alive.
Yeah. You know what's crazy? I'm sure you hear about this with clients that you work with, but you know, food controls you in a way, and a lot of different things. Like, I'm an emotional eater, so I'm stressed, I want to eat. I'm tired, I want to eat. When I'm happy, I want to eat. When we want to do gatherings, we got to have food, and it's just like
Yeah,
everything that you do is like I'm like, to me, I had that fear of food. It's like, oh man, if I eat this, then I'm gonna put on that extra 3 or 5 pounds, whatever. Then right
right,
now I gotta go run an extra mile or two,
right.
and so like I battle that, and and
Go
there's a lot
hire
of
me.
people. There's a lot of people in this world
Mhm.
that you'll never think about it, and it's just one of those things. It's like, oh man, you know what?
Once you put it out there, like, wow, this really does take so much of my energy and time. Every single time I'm turning to food, I'm thinking about this.
Yeah,
That literally is so much work, so much effort that's being drained out of your system.
I just had a conversation with a friend and then my wife yesterday, and I was like, why did God make us where we have to be relying on food every day? Like, why do we have to eat? Like, why did He make us where we got to eat food? And just
Wonders of eating food, the taste, the flavors. We literally had like a 30-minute conversation part of this call talking just about food.
I know, but it's funny because when you look at history and them breaking bread and being around the table and stuff like that. But that is a question I'm taking to heaven when I stand in front of them and ask them, why do we have to eat? So to
Why do
survive.
we have to eat? To experience the pleasures of food.
Yeah, exactly. But why do we need food to survive? It's kind of like my big question. It's like
Why do we need to breathe?
exactly all these questions. I
I mean,
I didn't think
the
about that. I
question,
have
the
not,
question
not now.
we all have.
I'm gonna go to bed stressed, looking at the ceiling, and my wife's like, "Close your eyes." I'm like, I can't because I keep thinking about like, why do we actually have to breathe to live? So no, such a good questions. Leda, since I have you talking right now, why don't you share like maybe 1 to 2 different reasons what makes you different from your competition, and why should someone decide to hire you?
Yeah, so long story short, I went through a crazy 2-3 year period where I just felt that I had to really emotionally purge a bunch of crap, to be
Yep.
honest. I was doing intuitive eating for a decade. I've been a dietitian for a while now. And then I realized when I was talking to people through intuitive eating that one of the biggest things is nervous system regulation because literally having to fear food and not having control. This is literally just nervous system. This is survival mode. This is us being in survival mode, wanting to control food, control. And so throughout the last few years, I've been able to regulate my nervous system and heal just a lot of the things that blocked me, right? And so food is just one avenue that blocks people, and I just so happen to be an expert with food. So I literally, it's my experience and what I bring to the table, my experience personally and education and just me.
Yeah, I love that. How can someone get in touch with you?
Yeah, through Instagram or through dietitianyourway.com
Okay, so on Instagram is just your name, Leda Medina.
at Nourish Flourish Energy.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Amy. Same question for you. What are some reasons why? Like, what separates you from your competition? Why should someone hire you?
Well, I say this humbly, but I'm good at what I do.
Yeah.
No, in all seriousness, I will go in and I will absolutely listen to everything that's said by my clients, and I'll find the places where the real challenges are. I don't call them problems, I call them challenges because challenges can be overcome. And there's no shame, there's no judgment for where how a business got to where it's at. I can see patterns and all of that, but sometimes people just need a trusted partner to help them move from feeling like they can't work well to, hey, this business is thriving and growing. And I'm good at what I do.
Yeah, I really liked one thing that I thought that was unique was how you were able to see the different chaos going on within an organization, and even just a small little fix of people knowing the culture and the vision of where they're going and getting people on the same page. So that's a big piece. I guarantee you that a lot of people that would hear this, they never even thought about that, and so that was a really good nugget. How can someone get in touch with you?
On all platforms, I'm at Amy K Nunn, just the letter K. And you can also email me at Amy at next to none, NEXTTONUNN.com.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much sorry about that. Thank you so much, everyone, for being on here today. I really appreciate you guys jumping on. And for all you listeners out there, if you heard something that resonates with you and saying, hey, you know what, I want to get in touch with that individual and learn more and hear how they can help me and where I'm at, I would encourage you guys to get in touch with them, reach out. And if you just can't find them online, make sure you drop a comment below this video, wherever you see it on the World Wide Web, and I'll make sure I get you in touch with them. And until next time, Semper Fi.